Do you have any idea how many people you've killed?
No, I don't even know.
Monster Kody did an interview, and he said that he brought somebody's arm. He brought somebody's arm back to a meeting, and that was Jay Blake's arm.
You mean to tell me that story is real?
Yes, that was Jay Blake's arm. It was real. He did bring an arm back. They chopped him up and put him in front of Jefferson High School.
Yeah, and a lot of homies said a lot of treacherous things about him. They were scared of him, homie. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah.
Few of the big homies. I mean, men ain't supposed to be scared of men, but they was afraid of him.
Big U's reputation already spoke volumes, but after the indictment against him, it became even more obvious to people just how much of a terror he really was. Some folks even started calling him the Blue Suge Knight of LA, known for intimidating people, extorting them, and allegedly going as far as murdering anyone who got in his way.
They do say that part of the investigation involves the murder of another young rapper back in Las Vegas. That the murder was over, are you ready for this? A diss. That he had written something in a song supposedly talking bad about Big U, and that is why he ended up getting murdered.
But here's the thing. Big U and his Rollin' 60s crew might not have had the space to grow the way they did if one particular person was still in the picture. That person is none other than Sanyika Shakur, aka Monster Kody. If you think Big U was feared, Monster Kody was on another level, a straight-up psychotic menace. This man literally earned the nickname Monster after he beat a man's face so badly, it became completely unrecognizable. And just at the age of 13.
Where did Monster come from?
The name?
Yeah.
Because America produced me, but the name came from a beating that I had given a guy, and the dude hit me in the face, and then we chased him and beat him and stomped him and disfigured him, and the pigs, police, was saying that whoever had did this to this cat was Monster.
That's why a lot of people believe Big U wouldn't have been able to stand next to Kody, let alone rise up the way he did. In fact, some say Big U and his people might not have even existed the way they do now, especially since one of the main sets Kody went hard against were the Rollin' 60s, during that brutal war between the 8 Trey gangster Crips and the Rollin' 60s.
Do you have any idea how many people you've killed?
No, I don't even know.
But you remember doing it?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I was engaged in a war, and the rules of engagement were kill or be killed, you know?
Monster Kody was about 3 years ahead of Big U, so by the time Big U was really making moves and becoming a major figure, Kody was already out of the streets and no longer active with the 8 Treys. Even Big U himself admitted that things would have been way more intense if Kody was still active, and he even said that Kody was one of his inspirations.
Kody was an enigma, man. If he could have stayed straight, he'd have been a mark. I look up to him. I got a lot of respect for him.
There's a lot to get into here, so let's dive in. Born in 1963, Kody grew up in an environment that was anything but nurturing. His father, Ernest, was abusive, frequently beating him, while his mother, Birdie, was distant and neglectful. The family dynamic was chaotic, and by the time his parents divorced in 1970, it was clear that Kody was already on a troubled path. Things only escalated further when, in 1972, his mother moved him to South Central Los Angeles, a neighborhood that, at the time, was quickly becoming a battleground for gang activity. It wasn't long before Kody found himself drawn to that world. One of his neighbors happened to be Stanley Tookie Williams, a man who would later become infamous as one of the co-founders of the Crips. Tookie took Kody under his wing, introducing him to gang culture. Kody would spend hours at Tookie's house watching older gang members lift weights, smoke PCP, and talk about the street life. To a kid with no real parental guidance, this was his version of education. He was soaking it all in, fascinated by the power and respect that these men commanded.
And at that age, it's very easy to feel powerless because a lot of us are powerless. So we join gangs, as I did, for the power. To be able to say, this is my crew, this is my posse, these are my homeboys.
Years later, Tookie would reflect on this period in his memoir Blue Rage, Black Redemption, expressing regret for exposing Kody to the gang lifestyle so early. But by then, the damage was already done. Kody was all in. By 1975, a new Crip faction called the 8 Trey Gangsters had formed in Kody's neighborhood, and he wasted no time joining up. He had just graduated from 6th grade, but instead of worrying about school, he was already making a name for himself in the streets. His initiation was no joke. One night, he and some other gang members stole a car, loaded it up with weapons, and went hunting for rival gang members. Their target was a group of Bloods known as the Brims, and Kody was handed a sawed-off 12-gauge shotgun with strict instructions. He wasn't allowed to leave the scene until he had fired every last shell. That was his entry into the gang world, and from then on, he was locked in.
He joined the Crips at age 11 on the day he graduated from the 6th grade. That night, he says he was given a shotgun, and for his initiation, he pumped 8 rounds into the ranks of a rival gang.
His reputation as Monster Kody only grew from there. He became known as one of the most ruthless members of the 8 Trey gangsters, and his name struck fear into both enemies and allies. By the time he was 14, he had already caught his first serious case. In 1978, he was arrested for shooting a fast food worker who had disrespected his younger brother Rayshawn. When he got out, the streets had already started to shift. The 8 Treys, who used to be tight with the Rolling 60s Crips, fell out after a fistfight turned into gunplay. Things hit a point of no return when a new 8 Trey recruit took out Tyrone, the younger brother of Big Rick, a respected Rollin' 60s member. That move shifted the whole dynamic in the streets. Hoods that were once cool had to pick sides, and old friendships turned into deadly beefs.
So every Friday, that became like our routine. We'd meet up there and fight. The 8 Treys, 9-0s, the Hoovers, every Friday we would meet at the same spot and fight. So then that one Friday, that's when Tyrone got killed.
Monster was all in. The war with the 60s kicked off heavy, and he was already going at it with their blood rivals too, sets like the Brims and the Inglewood families. In the summer of 1980, Monster's mom asked him to walk with her to the store. She liked shopping at this spot called the Buddha Market, which just so happened to be deep in Rollin' 60s territory. Sure enough, while there, Monster got into a shootout with a 60s member right outside the store. He caught a case for it, but ended up beating it. Then on July 8, 1980, Monster's girlfriend had just given birth to his first child. On his way to the hospital, he passed through 60s turf and spotted a dude known as Bank Robber, a 60s member. Monster didn't hesitate. He shot him multiple times and drove off. By this point, Monster said the war had already claimed lives. 8 Treys had lost about 5 people, and the Rollin' 60s had lost around 8. Things had gotten way past just fights and shootouts. This was full-blown war. At one point, the 60s even kidnapped an 8 Trey member's sister and held her for 3 days, doing some truly graphic, messed up things to her. That act alone sparked a whole new level of retaliation. Some 8 Trey gangsters wanted revenge, and not just on anyone. They were gunning for high-profile 60s, but they couldn't find them though. So instead, they caught another 60s member and went brutal, chopped him up, and even kept his arms as trophies.
Monster Kody did an interview, and he said that he brought somebody's arm.
You mean to tell me that story is real?
Yes, that was Jay Blake's arm. It was real. He did bring an arm back. They chopped him up and put him in front of Jefferson High School.
By the end of 1980, Monster got set up by 3 women and ambushed by the 60s. He got shot multiple times but survived. Just 2 days after getting out the hospital, police picked him up for 6 different shootings. He went back to jail to fight the charges, and again, beat the cases. But soon, Monster ended up getting sent back to jail again. Now, despite dropping out of high school, Kody found himself drawn to education while behind bars. Prison gave him time to think, and he used that time to read, learning about Malcolm X, the Black Panthers, and revolutionary ideologies that made him question everything he had been taught in the streets. He started associating with members of the Republic of New Africa, and that exposure pushed him to re-examine his purpose. It wasn't just about survival anymore. He wanted something bigger, something that mattered. His involvement in activism deepened when he participated in the 1992 Los Angeles riots, a massive uprising sparked by the brutal beating of Rodney King by LAPD officers. The riots were a turning point in L.A.'s history, and Kody was right in the middle of it, standing with his people in defiance of a system that had oppressed them for generations. That, of course, led to yet another arrest. By 1993, Kody was sitting in solitary confinement at Pelican Bay State Prison, one of the most notorious prisons in California. But it was in that cell, alone with his thoughts, that he decided to write down his life story. That decision led to Monster, the autobiography of an LA gang member, a book that would shake the world. At that time, gang culture was was still somewhat of a mystery to the general public. Most people only saw the surface-level violence, but Kody's book gave them a first-hand account of what life in the trenches was really like.
This book is 383 pages of reality. I'm uniquely qualified to write 383 pages of life for this generation, and that's what I've done. It's 383 pages of gore, no doubt about that, but it's reality. It happens every day.
Kody went on to write 2 more books, a novel titled Thug Life and another one called Stand Up, Struggle Forward, New African Revolutionary Writings on Nation, Class, and Patriarchy. He was even working on a third before he passed. Now, for someone as monstrous as Monster Kody once was, he still managed to turn his life around, becoming an author and activist, despite being one of the most notorious figures out there. But on the flip side, you have Big U, who came up 3 years after Kody. Instead of learning anything from him, he built a name as a bully, never even doing half of what Kody did. And now, it looks like karma has caught up with him. He might just end up rotting in prison for a long time. One of the most shocking allegations being leveled against Big U is his alleged involvement in the 2021 murder of Rayshawn Williams. Back in 2021, Big U started a record label called Unique Music and signed up-and-coming rappers from the West Coast. One of them was Rayshawn Williams, but somewhere along the line, things got messy.
Mr. Henley engaged in a murder of a musician signed to his label in 2021 and dumped the victim's body.
It's not exactly clear what sparked the tension between them, but what we do know is that Rayshawn ended up dropping a diss track aimed at Big U, and that may have cost him his life.
They do say that part of the investigation involves the murder of another young rapper back in Las Vegas, that the murder was over, are you ready for this? A diss. That he had written something in a song supposedly talking bad about Big U, and that is why he ended up getting murdered.
In the song, Rayshawn called Big U a bro that made some money, basically downplaying his power, and then took it a step further by saying, "This song can get me killed for thinking ish funny." Even crazier, he rapped about getting shot in the face with a .38 revolver that would leave no trace.
Referring to Big U as bro that makes some money. And that unnamed rapper may get shot in the face for thinking that his use of the studio and representation by Unique Music is funny.
5 days after dropping the track, Las Vegas police found his body in a ditch. He had been shot in the face with a revolver. And the cops think Big U is the one who pulled the trigger.
But the track was eerie given what happened next. Just days later, the rapper was shot in the face.
And here's where it gets even darker. Big U had known Rayshawn since he was a kid. He was actually his football coach back in the day, but that history didn't stop him from allegedly setting him up. According to court documents, Big U's label, Unique Music, flew Rayshawn from California to Las Vegas in January 2021. They put him up in an Airbnb, and he was supposed to spend the week recording new music at the studio. But when Rayshawn missed one of the sessions, Big U and his right-hand man, Sylvester Robinson, drove out to Vegas to check on him. When they pulled up to the Airbnb, they asked Rayshawn why he didn't go to the studio, and he told them he didn't have a ride. The next day, Rayshawn, Big U, and Sylvester Robinson finally made it to the studio together. No one knows exactly what went down inside, but what we do know is that a few hours later, Rayshawn was dead.
January 24th of 2021, Big U arrived to a studio and RW was there, recording until around midnight. A little after 12:30 a.m., Big U left the studio and his phone stopped reporting his location.
Surveillance footage caught him going back to the Airbnb at around 1 a.m. He was seen getting out of the car, grabbing his suitcase, and then hopping back in. He was supposed to stay in Vegas for another day, but Big U allegedly had other plans. According to investigators, Big U drove him out to the desert, shot him in the face, and then went right back to the studio like nothing happened.
About 45 minutes later, surveillance video at the Airbnb showed RW exiting the passenger side of the car and entering the Airbnb. A few minutes later, he left the Airbnb with a suitcase, got back into the car, and left. RW wasn't seen again. He wasn't even supposed to leave Vegas until the next day, but he never returned to the Airbnb. Instead, his body was found on the side of the road near Interstate 15.
A witness later told cops that Big U showed back up at the studio at around 3 a.m. looking drenched in either sweat or water. When they asked him what happened, he told them he had just come back from the gym. But just a few hours later, cops found Rayshawn's body dumped in a ditch, and Big U didn't stop there. According to the indictment, he tried to cover his tracks. He allegedly took recording equipment out of the studio after the murder and told someone to get rid of the surveillance footage from that night. Investigators also believe there was some kind of fight at the studio before Rayshawn got killed, which is why Big U wanted the video gone.
Witnesses told detectives an associate of Big U removed the video recording equipment from the studio a few days after the homicide, including video that would have shown RW and Big U at the studio before he was murdered.
After Rayshawn's death, Big U knew the heat was coming, so he allegedly had one of his homies drive his car and stay at his house. That way, if the cops pulled over the car or showed up at the crib, it would buy him some time to escape before they actually caught him. Nobody really knows the exact reason Big U allegedly killed Rayshawn, but this murder is what put him on the FBI's radar. Just a month after Rayshawn's death, the feds officially launched an investigation into Big U Enterprise. In 2004, after serving time, he rebranded himself as a community leader by starting a charity called Developing Options. On paper, Developing Options was supposed to help kids stay out of the streets and get involved in sports. But according to the feds, Big U was using the charity as a front to move dirty money. The city of LA even funded Developing Options through the Gang Reduction and Youth Development GRID program, giving Big U over $500,000 a year since 2015. That money was supposed to go toward at-risk youth, but instead Big U was allegedly pocketing a huge chunk of it.
Funding a South LA-based charity, Developing Options, which purports to help at-youth risk escape gang life and escape the perils of gangs in high-crime areas.
And it wasn't just government money. Even celebrities got caught up in the scam. According to the indictment, Draymond Green and Shaquille O'Neal both donated $20,000 each to Developing Options, thinking they were supporting a good cause. But instead of helping kids, Big U allegedly transferred the money straight into his personal accounts.
Mr. Henley is accused of embezzling donations made by celebrities, professional athletes, and businesses to his charity, Developing Options.
The indictment also reveals that Big U was shaking down weed dispensaries, forcing them to pay him $25,000 a month just to operate without problems. One dispensary owner couldn't afford the payments anymore, so Big U sent his goons to rob the shop. Armed men stormed in, stole cash and a bunch of weed. Then later that same day, Big U called the shop owner to his house. When the owner showed up, Big U had all the stolen money and product laid out on the table and told him, "That's how you rob yourself." Then, just to add insult to injury, he made the guy pay him another $10,000 to avoid getting robbed again. But Big U wasn't done yet. He wanted to rob more dispensaries. He told the same shop owner to help him set up other weed stores, promising him a cut of the money. As proof of how serious he was, Big U even handed the guy back some of the money that had just been stolen from his own shop. According to the cops, Big U had his hands in extortion schemes all over the city. One of the wildest incidents in the indictment goes back to 2021, when Big U threw a birthday party for himself at a nightclub. He told the club owners that he was going to bring in some huge rappers like T.I. and Wiz Khalifa, so they struck a deal. Big U would get 30% of the money made at the bar that night. But when Big U and his crew pulled up, things took a turn. Instead of just collecting his cut, he forced one of the club owners into a back room and extorted him for $30,000. The feds had already been watching Big U and his crew for years, and this was just another incident on a long list of crimes they were tracking. They had wiretaps, surveillance, and paid informants, and they were building a solid case. At one point, the feds actually recorded Big U plotting a robbery. It all started when a celebrity rapper got jacked for his studio equipment. Big U heard about it and decided he was going to rob the guys who stole it. Some of the stolen equipment had an Apple AirTag on it, meaning they could track it in real time. Big U and his crew loaded up their guns, tracked the thieves down, and were about to hit the lick. But at the last second, they spotted cops in the area and decided to call it off. That wiretap was a major piece of evidence in the feds' case, proving that Big U was still operating like a crime boss, even though he was trying to convince the public that he had changed. But in a different wiretap conversation, Big U pretty much exposed himself. He told someone, "If I ever had a problem with any man, color, creed, king, or kind, the issue would have been resolved. He wouldn't be here, or I wouldn't be here. I'm still who they say I am, and I'll pull up on your block right now and show up and show out." That's what happened to the last dude that thought I retired. The feds also had informants feeding them information from the inside. At one point, an informant actually handed Big U money while undercover. But what Big U didn't know was that the cash was coming straight from the feds. They recorded the whole thing, giving them video proof that Big U was still moving money under the table. One of the most surprising parts of the whole situation is that Big U's own son is a rising star in the NFL. Diane Henley, a linebacker for the Los Angeles Chargers, is in a position to take care of the whole family. He's out here making legit money in the league. But instead of chilling and living off his son's success, Big U just couldn't leave the streets alone. Now, instead of enjoying his son's rise in the NFL, he's facing the possibility of life in prison.